Hello, and welcome to TMO Sports, a new addition to the Making of Podcast Network. I'm your host, Mike Valinsky, and today I'm excited to welcome the one and only Tom Fletcher. Tom is an inductee in the Sports Broadcasting Hall of Fame in 2023. He was also the recipient of the ASC Bud Stone Award in 2026. He is the co-founder of Momento and much more. He has been a pioneer and innovator with technologies used for both cinema and sports production. The list goes on. I thought we could invite him on to hear about his amazing career, talk about the state of sports TV production, and about his latest venture, Momento. However, before we dive in, we'd like to thank our good friends at AJA Video Systems for all their support on this podcast. Check out their amazing solutions at aja.com. Now on to the main show. Tom, good morning.
Good morning.
So, Tom, I want to hear about your new venture, Momento. But first, can we hit rewind? And can you
Yep.
share a little bit about where you're from and how you got into this industry?
Yeah. Great to be here today, and always like talking about how uh, how we got started, how I got started in this industry. My father and I started Fletcher Chicago in 1987, primarily to sell products, everything but the camera. Um, at the time, video was exploding, and there wasn't somebody that concentrated on accessories. And we found, electrosonics, wireless microphones, and brought those into the industry. Um, and we started a rental business originally to do audio, and then we expanded into cameras and started renting beta cams. And I had went to IBC and discovered equipment dollies. And my friend there, Mark Blaker, said, "What remote heads do you use?" And I said, I I didn't want to be embarrassed. We didn't have any remote heads. I knew from the Matthews catalog in the back they talk about the Netman cam remote, so I was able to talk about that. And he said, "You should meet my friend Lori Frost. He invented the hothead, which is the very first remote head that was used in motion pictures." And really revolutionized how motion pictures captured lots of dangerous stunts and remote work. Laurie Frost, he was the camera assistant on Barry Lyndon and helped John Alcott win an Academy Award. He's just this amazing camera assistant. He was tired of putting his ass in danger, over a ledge, and he created a head so he could be on safe land and put a head in a different spot. What I saw was something different. I went to Bulls games in the early 90s and 1991. That was, Michael Jordan's first NBA championship. But as I'm sitting watching the game, really not watching the game, I'm just looking at the bottom of the scoreboard, and I'm saying we could put that hothead on the bottom of the scoreboard and it'd get a great shot of half court. And Mike Fratello was the color commentary for NBC Sports at the time, and he was the czar of the telestrator, and he could just telestrate everything. I knew I could give him the camera angle that would be just like the chalkboard of what you're looking at the board. So we went to Andy Rosenberg with NBC Sports, said, "Hey, we'd like to do this for the NBA Finals." We did it for the NBA Finals. It was a huge success. And then Andy every year kept coming back to us saying, "Can you give me something new?" He was written up. Rudy Martzke wrote a column in USA Today that meant everything to Andy and anybody that was in the industry, and talking about how Andy had created this new shot. So Andy wanted something new, and all-star games were always a great spot. So we were always creating new camera angles, putting it first behind the backboard. When we did it originally, it was literally security cameras. And, to zoom, it was literally pushing a button to zoom in, pushing a button to zoom out, pushing another button to focus. It was really crude, but for an all-star game, it worked. And it showed Andy he liked having behind the backboard a camera that could move. And myself, Dan Grange was a big part of our organization. Fletcher Sports would not be where it's at without Dan. We just were always thinking and trying to come up with new camera angles. Dan would actually be an operator. I never operated. I would go around a sporting event, and my head is always thinking, and I'm looking, what if we put a camera there? And then the other thing that I always say is I really just would look to see where still photographers were putting cameras. So, you know, Andy Bernstein, who started NBA Photos, he put cameras in unique positions to capture unbelievable shots. And I knew that the camera technology was going to get smaller, and I knew that we could get the remote head smaller. So I pushed Lori Frost to build me a smaller remote head so that we could put a remote head instead of a full size, hot head. Um, we could put them in spots above the rim, behind the glass, behind the nets, not blocking fans. And we just were fortunate to take advantage of opportunities that were given to us.
Well, we appreciate it because you have millions and millions and millions of fans, if not more, that have been watching these games and probably rewatching it on YouTube now. Jordan doing his magic and everybody else. And was this adopted beyond Chicago? Can you tell us is an evolution there?
Yeah. The great thing for us, I mean, we actually did it the very first time we did it in sports was the Chicago NHL All Star game in 1991. The United States had just entered into a conflict, and there was just great patriotism. But it was just the first time we put a camera on the bottom of the scoreboard. It was not easy. John Fett was the guy who ran Chicago Stadium. He's, you know, curmudgeon. If you look in the dictionary, you might see his picture next to it. He just didn't want to lower the scoreboard. It was a giant scoreboard, and he didn't want to lower the scoreboard for us to attach the head to it. But we had gotten that experience in January of 1991. And thank God for Michael Jordan, because as much as I love hockey, and hockey's my most passionate sport, people don't pay attention to hockey as much as they do basketball. And they certainly don't pay attention to basketball or hockey as much when you got Michael Jordan playing Magic Johnson. So those ratings and NBC Sports, that's the first time NBC Sports had the NBA. They just did a phenomenal job of creating new camera angles. Andy Rosenberg created the slash camera position to emphasize the faces. All these innovations happened in those early 90s, and we were just fortunate to be a part of it. But by doing that in 1991, we did it in Chicago and LA. The NBA and the NHL both had broadcaster meetings, and so they invited us to these meetings, Dan Grange and myself, to present what we did. And everybody wanted that camera. Everybody wanted that shot. So New York, LA, Utah, San Antonio, everybody wanted the shot, but no one had the money for it. The budgets were set. And so what I did was I came up with the idea of, well, let's just do like the Goodyear blimp, because if the broadcast had to pay for a blimp to come out and it wasn't underwritten by Goodyear for the sponsorship, you wouldn't get that shot. So with the help of the NBA, Michael McCullough, who's now the GM for the Miami Heat, he helped me navigate the sponsors that were NBA sponsors and connected me, and I got to Upper Deck Trading Cards. And in 1991 to 1993, that overhead camera angle 3 times a game, Johnny Redker would say from we see Michael Jordan driving the lane from our upper deck cam, and they'd give a little graphic on the bottom of the screen, and we'd give the feed to out of town broadcasters. We went to every Bulls game. I know that's really a hardship, primarily to meet the out of town broadcasters that were coming through. And with hockey, we just met every broadcaster that came through Chicago. But we originally installed in Chicago, New York, and LA in the bottom of the scoreboard. And some 32, 33 years later, those camera positions are still there. And Fletcher, or now who they're owned by NEP, those camera positions are still controlled by them.
Incredible. Incredible. And jealous that you got to see Jordan play limitlessly.
Yeah, it was nice. I like to argue with my son about he's a big LeBron fan.
There's one goat. That's it.
Yeah, it's a different podcast.
Um, Tell us a little bit about your Fujifilm segment of your career.
Well, after we sold Fletcher, we had two deals of Fletcher, as you mentioned. I have involvement in ASC and the sports side. We sold it in two pieces. Um, we sold the I'll call the motion picture side to VER, and we sold the sports side, which is now owned by NEP. And I went with the VER side, uh, help with the motion picture side. We had played a big role in the transition from shooting on film to shooting electronically. I was a very active participant in that. I was very proud that we rented motion picture film cameras, and but after NEP, after VER bought us, private equity came in and said, "Okay, let's get rid of the two high salaries." So myself and my colleague Zoe Boris were dismissed, which that's fine. And Fuji quickly said, "Hey, you know what? You know a lot of people. You know the sports world and you know the motion picture world, and we need help in both worlds." And so for me, I can go to an SVG event and I know everybody there, and I can go to an ASC event. And I had already been a member of the ASC as an associate member for a few years. And so I came in and helped create the Promistas, the large format lenses for that, and launch us into that. And then the other thing that I'm very proud of is creating the line of Duvo lenses, which is a 25 to 1000 millimeter focal length with a PL mount. And how I got there was during the pandemic, our factory, I had still had to do a, a press conference just via Zoom during the pandemic. And the factory said, "You need to talk about 8K." And I pushed back. I said, "I don't want to talk about 8K. 8K is slow to take up. People are still struggling to talk about 4K. I don't want to have slides in there about 8K." They said, "No, no, Tom-san, you're going to talk about 8K." Anyway, Fujinon had two lines of lenses. They had a PL set of lenses, and then they had a, three chip 8K lens. And when I'm giving the presentation, I see that they have this 35 to 700 millimeter PL lens. And I'm like, it just dawned on me in the literally in the middle of the press conference, that 700 millimeters and a fast T-stop or a fast aperture of 2.8, the concert world would love to have that. At VER, they had 35 Live, which did all these concert events. And I said, also, sports would like that, because at Fletcher, we bought the 4800 cameras, which are still to this day the premier super slow mo cameras. 13, 14 years later, they're still the camera that gives the look that is just still dreamy. And the native mount on that camera is PL. So I said, we need to build a lens that's going to work that way. And the factory didn't want to do it. They'd never, no one's ever built a lens for the motion picture, and really tried to mass market a PL box lens. And they built that for NHK, because NHK, is always developing things. I just went on a mission of getting that lens seen and used by all different people. So we brought it to Wrigley Field and got some incredible footage. We took it to NFL venues, and got some incredible footage, and really whetted the appetite of what was happening, and just kind of rode the wave of Jared had created the Megalodon with Fox Sports, and the industry liked that shallow depth of field look, and I just wanted to expand that. And it's still playing out. It's still developing. Fox does an amazing job. Um, CBS is doing an amazing job. Not all directors like it. Some directors don't like that cinematic look. They're still learning, and it's a lot of fun to bring both worlds together.
Cinematic sports seems to be the thing now, and fans and viewers really want to watch everything, and in that quality, right?
Well, I think of people like John Schwartzman, ASC. They have the ability to move and put cameras in places that you can do in a movie. In sports, you have to do it in a spot where it's out of the way and it's not in the way of fans who are paying tickets to be there. And it certainly can't, you can't put a camera on the track. He could do that when he's running a race because they just run for 100 yards and then they stop and cut and move and reframe the shot. We have to do that. So I love the challenge. So I love being at the ASC and talking to ASC members about the cinematic look of what we're doing in sports. And yeah, it's a fun to see the two worlds come together.
Yeah, and of course, there's some ginormous movies that are sports movies, whether it's F1 or these other films that are, sporting events shot incredibly well cinematically and making, $1 billion plus, right?
Yeah, I saw Claudio and his director at Camera Image. We had done Fujifilm Fujinon had been very active um, with Claudio in his previous movie, and I was all excited about this long lens. And Claudio said, "We don't need that lens. We can control things, because they're making a movie, and for the most part, they have the ability to put cameras where they want." So I was disappointed we didn't use it, but we certainly used a lot of long lenses for Top Gun Maverick, where they're pulling planes out of the sky. All the aerials were used with Fujinon lenses, and I know that when we had that 35 to 700, that first test lens I talked about a little bit earlier, I knew if I sent it to Ben Richardson, who shot Yellowstone in 1883, they're using our Fujinon 75 to 400 with two doublers because the director, Tyler Sheridan, he just likes that shallowed up the field, that compression that you're getting in the shot, and the beautiful vistas. I knew if I sent the lens to them, I would never get the lens back. And we needed to get the lens to as many places so that I could convince the factory to build the lens. And Jimmy Platt was a director for Monday Night Football at the time, and he was a huge fan of it. And his producer, his production manager, Jim Munn, called and left me a voicemail the day that the factory was having a key meeting on whether they were going to move forward on building that lens or not. And the voicemail was just perfect. I still have the voicemail. He goes, "This is what the industry is looking for. We are very excited about it, and yeah, we're looking at using four of them, and uh, it couldn't have been a better timed voicemail."
Terrific. So let me ask you this. You've been instrumental in some of these innovations, making sports more cinematic. Um, where do you see things trending in the coming months and perhaps years?
I think the big thing that I'm seeing that I'm really excited about is the ability to do bullet time, in real time. So most recently, I think it's a Danish company. They stitch cameras together. It's a long row of cameras. They've been successfully using it in tennis behind the tennis player. They can't have a camera going back and forth during a tennis match. So what they do is they just have a bar with a bunch of cameras spaced about a foot apart from each other, and you can track back and forth, and it can stitch that shot electronically where it looks like the camera is literally moving like this. So most recently at the All-Star game, they had the same system set up right in front of the batter, and it looks like there's a little dolly move happening in front of the camera, and it's not. It's just stationary cameras. We as Fletcher Sports had done a tracking shot for the NHL at the Dallas All-Star game. I think it was 2007, which was a rail cam that went up and down the ice, and it was mounted where it looked like it was on top of the glass. And it was a phenomenal shot because it really shows the speed of the sport of hockey. But at the same time, I was just always nervous. I didn't want, it's 35 pounds of equipment going up and down the ice at speeds of up to 30 miles an hour. If something were to happen, it would not end pretty. And so there was just a nervous factor. Certainly, we did all the safety factors, and the league did all their safety factors, and it checked out. It's also just a long time to set up. At an all-star game, you have that time and you have that control. But back then in 2007, because the Wachowskis are, acquaintances of mine being in Chicago, that they're headquartered in Chicago. I was very familiar with bullet time. And I said, okay, eventually we're going to get to the spot where we're going to put these cameras into the boards. And you're going to literally go up and down the ice, and they're going to be built into the boards. And it's not going to be a setup time. It's something that can be managed for day in and day out sports. That was one of the keys to the success of Fletcher. Was Dan always said, we got to build something that they're using night in and night out. We wanted to be used on the 41 home dates for basketball and hockey, the 81 dates for baseball, and certainly every NFL game.
So, Tom, let me ask you all about Momento. What's this new company that you started recently?
Well, as I talked about previously with Fletcher Chicago and Fletcher Sports, that was a business I did with my father. This latest venture I'm doing with my son as well as my sister. My sister also was very involved and instrumental in the success of Fletcher Sports and Fletcher Camera. Momento is the roller coaster ride, but for sports. It's, my son had been involved and had come to a number of sporting events. And when he was a junior in college, between junior and senior year, he came to me and said, why aren't they doing something for fans? They do all this stuff. They're improving, the telecast and all these angles, but why aren't they doing something for fans? And he had this idea of taking pictures of the fans and delivering it to them on their phone. So what we do is we install between 8 and 16 cameras in a venue. Just depends on the size of the venue, depends on the scoreboard. We put cameras all over the stadium, and they all are connected. And when a big moment happens, we have one operator that we pay that fires the cameras, goes click, 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 Cubs walk-off home run, or click, 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 Chicago Bears beat the Packers. I wish we were installed in Soldier Field, but we weren't installed for some of those games. We've now installed the system. We're going to be in 10 NFL arenas this year. We just installed into Wrigley Field, our second MLB stadium. Wrigley Field is just magical, and that's coming from a Sox fan. It's tough for me to say, but love being able to look at pictures of themselves going, oh my God, PCA just hit for the cycle. PCA hit a game-winning home run. Cubs win, and you're getting that genuine emotion. You can get it in a GIF sequence. You can get it in a ticket. People miss the souvenir tickets. That's kind of how we got the name Momento, as we're giving them a keepsake of being at the game. So getting a printed ticket. Or we also are partnered with Sports Illustrated Tickets. They've been our biggest sponsor. They're taking us to the Premier League this fall. We just shipped the equipment out. Yesterday, I actually got picked up to go to Premier League. And it's just a fascinating, fun business. A lot of work.
Well, the importance of this is that people are seeing a ball game with their dad or grandfather or
Oh,
brother, and being able to look back later and have an amazing photograph of that moment is priceless, as we know.
yeah, we've had two quick stories. One of my favorite stories is down in Tampa. We installed into the Tampa Bay Lightning, and we also, you can buy products. For the most part, it's a free product. The fans get the pictures for free. So on Saturday's Cubs game, there were 58 big pictures that we took. So we might take 5 or 6 pictures in a moment, and so there were 58 pictures. But and you can also order coasters or a printed picture, and then it's sent to your house. Otherwise, you can download it or you can print it on site at the stadium. But we had somebody who placed a large order, and we were just curious. We asked her why. This was $300. All of our orders have generally been like $50 or $60. And she wrote us back this note that her father had been an original season ticket holder for the Tampa Bay Lightning, and he had recently passed. She and her brother and sister, The last game that all four of them were at together, they had them high-fiving and hugging, and she downloaded these pictures, had ordered all of them, and she gave them to her brother and sister, and they laughed, they cried, and it just there's just a connection that families have, and they have that moment. And the last thing I'll say is we had great run with the Seattle Mariners last year with the playoffs and the Geno Suarez home run in the eighth inning of the ALCS. They think they're going to the World Series. There's just endless pictures of fans celebrating and hugging. And my favorite is we have a son, a father, and a grandfather, just hugging each other. And it's like, okay, that's a moment you're never going to have again. And that's just priceless. So it's been a lot of fun. And as I said, a lot of work.
Yeah, but I mean, I gotta say, to have pictures of that with some of my family from way back, wouldn't mind having that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pre-iPhone, pre-smartphone. So I think it's a great mission you have.
We want people to live the moment, and a lot of the people when we interview them, they say what they like about this is they can put away their phones, they can just enjoy the moment as opposed to taking their moment and having a phone. Let me see what's going on, and you can't take a picture of yourself being genuinely happy. One of the best things, the best ways for people to learn about this is people share their picture on social media, like, here's me going nuts at the game, and then like, how'd you get that picture? And then like, well, there's this site and it's cubs.mymomento or mariners.mymomento or seahawks.mymomento. And so the people that were at the NFC championship game when the Seahawks know they're going to the Super Bowl, they have those moments of that jubilation. And the average fan goes to two sporting events a year. So it's not something that people get to go to all the time. So they like having those pictures, those moments to hold on to and to cherish.
So, do you guys envision going nationwide, maybe even beyond? And I have to ask, even though this is TMO Sports, episode number one, uh, do you envision this getting into the rock concert arena or other applications?
4 minutes ago, because it's when we're recording this, we are doing a concert at Paycor Stadium in Cincinnati. So what we have to do is we just have to come in and fill in cameras that are covering the floor seats, which this case is the field, because we don't our cameras aren't covering. When we install the cameras, we leave those cameras installed. So our cameras are installed in the stadiums all over the country, and they're there and they're indexed to every seat, because you have to be able to put in your seat location. You say, I'm sitting in section 121, row 5, seat 9. It comes back with pictures of you that you're looking at. You don't have to go through and find yourself unless you're sitting in general admission. So then you have to find yourself once, but once you find yourself, it just stays with that. And it's fun to see people discover this. And like, was just talking to somebody the other day, they were at the Cubs game, 2 Saturdays ago. And like, okay, where are you sitting? And they give me their seat. And I show it to them. Oh my God. And again, they like the GIF sequence. They like the series of the 4 or 5 that stitch together and repeat. It's a lot of fun.
Well, this sounds fascinating. I guess everybody can go to what's your URL if they want to explore this.
The URL is mymomento.com. And, again, we're in a number of NFL. We're hoping to close a few more here before the start of the season. The biggest hurdle for us is just getting these installed and getting the stadium to install it. Last year, the Commanders, we had a week to get it installed at Northwest Stadium, and the electricians worked overtime, and we got them in, and we indexed the seats just in time for the start of the game. And just wish the Commanders would have had a better season, and so do they, obviously. So the Ravens have been one of our best clients. They really get it. They understand that the fans like this. The fans enjoy seeing themselves. Um, and they almost every one of our companies that we've done it with the teams have gotten a sponsor on board with it. Farmers Insurance is our sponsor for the Cubs, and uh, Chick-fil-A was the sponsor for us down in Tampa, and they wanted to call it Momento, and we're like, absolutely, we think that's a great name. And little kids are taking and putting these pictures on their walls and putting it at home. That's just advertising that you just can't get, and a connection with the fan. Sports are trying to personalize the fan experience. Nothing's more personal than a picture of you and your family, or you and your friends or mates, as they say other places, just having fun.
Yeah.
uh, it's just getting started. So yes, in my opinion, this technology will be in every sporting event, just like every roller coaster ride you go on now has a picture. At a small amusement park, they have it. The technology's there. And similar to what we did with Fletcher Sports, where we installed cameras, as I said earlier, in 1991 in Chicago, New York, and LA. This is just going to stay in. So we think of it as a good business. Um, and and we're excited. We're excited to do Premier League. I went to one Premier League game at Tottenham last year with Sports Illustrated tickets, and just the passion of the fans. I've been to Steelers game. I've been to most stadiums in the NFL. It's at a different level at the Premier League.
And I got to tell you, I'm beaming in here from New York. We just had obviously New York Knicks won after 53 years. And uh, I'm sure a lot of those fans in that MSG would have loved to have pictures of them wearing
Oh,
the.
the tip in, the tip in to win the game, that moment, that joy of it and excitement. But it doesn't have to be just for the spectacular moments, the buzzer beaters, the Kawhi Leonard shot from the corner, or the walk-off home run in a World Series. It is, again, the average fan goes to two sporting events. So for them, when they go to a baseball game in July at Wrigley Field, they still want that keepsake, and they can have it on their phone, but people like something physical. And we have another side to our business that's just kind of grown, is what we call Snap Squad. Is we take a Fujifilm Instax camera, and we're putting a QR code in the corner that takes you to my Momento, because people have a hard time, how do I get there? But we just take pictures of people before the game, and we hand them to them, and it's free, and we're giving them the QR code to go into my Momento, to drive people to go in to see farmers or see Sports Illustrated tickets. And but people love the physical nature of having something in their hands.
Yeah, that's coming back big time. I mean, we
Yeah,
see it across the board. You're talking Polaroid type cameras.
it's an Instax, just to clarify. Yes.
Well, I was speaking for the masses to
Yeah.
understand from the olden days.
Understand. Yes. At World Cup watch parties, we did 2,000 prints at a watch party in at Sports Illustrated Stadium.
It's a fantastic business. I think it's going to grow incredibly. I thanks so much for sharing all about this. I do have one more question. It's kind of a
Yep.
macro question here. Um, what recommendations would you have for students, younger filmmakers, content creators, people that want to get into sports production, anybody that's kind of the next gen? What
Yep.
recommendations would you have for those folks?
Um, in my career at Fletcher, we did a lot of workshops. So when I started working for Fujinon, we started doing what we call our long lens workshops. And it's just teaching people, how do you mount a big $250,000 lens, onto a camera. It's really intimidating. One of the reasons I did is I had no idea how to do it. I've always lived in just, you know, regular 2/3 inch lens or a PL lens. I know how to do that, but I had no idea how to mount this big, 60-pound lens onto a camera. And we ran a workshop, and we had Jim Tianis and Pat Rondow were our instructors. they taught the people how to do it. So what I would suggest if you're a young person is your rental house or truck vendors that are in your community, they need more crew. There's not enough crew. There's so many broadcasts that are happening now with, it's not just Major League Baseball, it's, the growth of women's sports and the growth of all the television channels that are out there. And you get to a busy fall weekend where there's college football going on, professional football going on, baseball still going, and, even hockey might be starting up and they don't have crew. So they need more people. So any type of opportunity to get in front of somebody is a great thing. So back with that original long lens workshop that we did, we had a young kid that was there and he made a connection with Pat and Jim. He right now works every marquee game, for the Chicago Cubs. And that's just because he came to a workshop to learn how to do this and made the connection. It's going to boil down to your personality, but you still need to be, capable of understanding how to use the equipment. So I strongly recommend, whether you're interested on the motion picture side or the sports side, is sign up for companies' emails and look for those workshops. A lot of times they're free. With Fujifilm, we ultimately decided we just charged a token like $35 to weed out people that weren't that serious. And it did a great job of weeding them out. And because you want to have just a limited number of people, so you're getting real hands-on time with the equipment. And, that just allows the people to, to get that hands-on education and the connection. So I highly recommend that. The other thing I would say is I'm very open to talking to people. Throughout my whole career, there's been a lot of people that have helped me with my career. My email is tom@mymomento.com. Please drop me a note. Say you saw this here, and I suggest that I drop you a note. I'll try to connect you wherever you are with somebody in the area and try to help you as much as I can. We need operators. We pay people to go for Momento. We pay you to go to the Cubs game. I think it's $150. Don't hold me to that, but we pay $150. Your responsibility is to show up and fire the cameras when there's a big moment, and just type Cubs walk-off home run, PCA hits for the cycle. And But what I always tell my young operators is the same thing that happened to me when I was a young person when we were starting Fletcher is get to the venue early. You have a credential to get in. I don't want you to be an operator for us for very long. I want you to work for me for a few months, and I want you to make connections with the Kraken. One of the people who works for us, they ultimately got a job with the Kraken. She called me, and she didn't call me. She called our company and said, "Hey, I just want to let you know I'm not going to be able to operate anymore. I'm now working full time for the Kraken." We're like, "That's great. That's what we want to do. Is we want you to go out into the community and get a job." We hired our operator who operated for us at the New York Red Bulls. He now works for us full time. So take advantage of making connections. And when you meet somebody and you get their cell number, save it. Put their name into your phone and stay in contact with people. So that's it. I'll get off my soapbox.
No, these are great suggestions. And, from somebody who's built incredible businesses and helped Fujinon and Fujifilm immensely. So, Tom, thanks so much. Now, where can folks find you? If you didn't mention, just give us one more repeat
Yeah.
of.
I mean, if you want to find me, pop me an email to tom@mymomento. Just reference that you saw it here, and we'll connect. And I think that's the best place. I'm in Chicago. If you're in the Chicagoland area, I'll say, hey, let's go grab a cup of coffee. Or our offices happen to be right above a brewery in Chicago, so I'll say, hey, let's get a beer downstairs. People generally like that, and the value of making a personal relationship is just priceless. And I think that's the one thing that's a harder thing in today's world. People just, they want to do things via Zoom. They don't want to do things in person. And I know from whether it's Fujifilm or with Momento in the last, number of years here, I'll work. It's so much better to have an in-person meeting. And yeah, it costs me, $300, $500 to have a plane ticket, maybe a night in a hotel. But boy, does that make a difference.
Yeah, agreed. Agreed. So, Tom, thank you so much. This is great hearing your backstory, your trajectory, um, all about Momento, and this is your company's going to grow um,
We
immensely.
hope so.
Yeah, it's going to be a great few years coming up. But just thanks so much for coming on the show, and we really appreciate your time today.
No, thank you. I'm excited for this, and the industry needs more places to learn. And make connections. So, thank you.
Thanks again. And also thanks to our friends at AJA Video Systems. We'll see you all on the next episode.